solely the opinions of the host and the guests that appear on the show. It's time now for Tea Party Talk with TomZ, hosted by Tom Zawistowski, president of the We the People Convention and executive director of the Portage County Tea Party. Get ready to become a totally engaged American who is informed about the critical issues that are affecting the welfare and individual rights of all Americans today.
S&K Asphalt and Concrete has been serving residential, commercial, and industrial customers since 1988 with quality paving services. The experts at S&K Asphalt and Concrete have the knowledge and experience to meet your paving needs. From parking lots to driveways to repairs and resurfacing, S&K paves the way. Call today for a free estimate, 330-724-9090. That's 330-724-9090. Or visit online at skasphaltconcrete.com.
Are you concerned about your family's safety? Now, Target Thing Pro Shop is a female-friendly gun shop, range, and training center. Target Thing is in Garrettsville. You're on the web at targetthing.com. Target Thing is where they offer guns, ammo, and training to help you keep your family safe. Target Thing Pro Shop.
Fed up with politicians who care more about special interests than people on Main Street? So is Opportunity Ohio. We're working hard to solve Ohio's toughest challenges so Ohioans can create more jobs to grow our economy. See our plans and consider a tax-deductible contribution at opportunityohio.org. Invest $25 for a signed copy of Matt Mayer's book, The Founding Debate, Where Should the Power Over Our Lives Reside? Please visit opportunityohio.org.
Well, good morning and welcome to our show. We appreciate you taking time out of your morning to join us. And we thank all of you who are watching the live video stream on Wednesday mornings at 10:30 a.m. when we record this show at teapartytalkwithtomz.com. That's also where you can get archives of previous shows, and you can also send me emails and click on to join me on Twitter and kind of connect with me. You also see a list of books that we reference in the show, and those of you who listen to the show regularly know that we do reference a lot of books. And I also want to thank all of you who are listening on WHLO 640 AM in Akron, Ohio on Saturday mornings from 9 until 9:30 a.m. WHLO has a great signal on Saturday mornings, reaching 66 of the 88 counties in Ohio, plus parts of Indiana, Michigan, and Western Pennsylvania. So welcome to all of you and to everyone who's listening on iHeartRadio at www.640whlo.com. You can listen on iHeartRadio. And you can also find podcasts of this show. If you miss a show or don't get to hear all of it, go to www.640whlo.com, and you can listen to the podcasts of this show and previous shows. So, there's lots of ways to get connected, and we appreciate your interest in our show and what we had to say. And we really do try to work hard to find things in the news that maybe you didn't pick up on and possibly explain some things that in the news that you heard about but weren't quite sure, what they were all about. So that's what we're going to do again today. I want to thank those of you who joined us at the Buckeye Institute event in Cleveland on Tuesday at the Marriott outside of Cleveland. They had Stephen Moore and Paul Atkins come and speak to us about the economy and the budget and some of that stuff and what's going on in our country. And, it's great to see some of you there, and I appreciate you supporting the Buckeye Institute, and they're a great organization, and congratulations to Robert and Greg and Ray for putting that event on, and thanks to them for bringing Stephen Moore and Paul Atkins to talk with us. Our first topic today is going to be about this story that appeared in Cleveland.com, which is the Cleveland Plain Dealer newspaper's website, where basically on Tuesday, May 19th, they let it be known that the Ohio Republican Party paid $300,000 in legal bills to keep the Libertarian candidate off the ballot in the gubernatorial race. They reported that the Ohio Republican Party paid $300,000 to the law firm involved with successfully keeping would-be Libertarian gubernatorial candidate Charlie Earl off of last year's ballot. According to the Ohio Elections Commission's filings, the payment, detailed by attorneys representing Governor Kasich's re-election campaign and GOP activist Terry Casey, came after Republican Party Chairman Matt Borges denied in federal court last year that his party was behind the challenge to Earl's candidacy. According to a separate motion filed earlier this month by Casey and Kasich's campaign, the Ohio Republican Party made 3 separate payments to the law firm of Ziegler, Tiggs, and Little between November 2014 and February of this year. Those payments were documented in campaign finance reports sent to the Ohio Secretary of State's office. when the Libertarians filed a federal lawsuit to try to force Charlie Earl's name on the ballot last year in federal court, Ohio Republican Chairman Matt Borges testified in March 2014 in that federal court that the party did not pay any money to fund the case against the Libertarian parties. And he was quoted as saying, in those court records, anyone who's looking for the conspiracy behind it, it's just not there, said Borges. State GOP spokesperson Chris Schremp confirmed in an email that after Earl's federal case was dismissed, only after it was dismissed, Borges was approached about assisting with a large legal bill. Wow, isn't that interesting, right? The spokesman also did not say whether Borges or other state GOP officials had an understanding at the time of Borges' testimony that the party would eventually cover legal fees. But basically, Casey, a former Kasich staffer, so the guy that recruited this gentleman named Gregory Felosci, Felsoci, who was a registered libertarian who challenged Earl's candidacy at the urging of this former Kasich staffer, Casey, arranged for Felosci to challenge Earl's petition, stated in his motion that he made no arrangements with anyone about paying the legal bills until the U.S. District Court ruled against Charlie Earl in the case in October 2014. From the start, the person who filed the charges against the Earl candidacy, this Felosci guy, understood that he would not be responsible for paying. So this guy gets egged into challenging. All right, he gets egged into challenging the ballot petitions for the Libertarian Party to put Charlie Earl on the ballot, and he knew that he wouldn't have to pay any legal fees. So who do you think was going to pay those legal fees? Well, we found out, that the ORP, the Ohio Republican Party, the Kasich people, paid the fees. They paid $100,000 to the firm in November, right after the election, $150,000 in late December, and $50,000 in February. Earl filed a complaint with the Elections Commission last month, claiming that the legal bills that Casey racked up constituted an illegal in-kind contribution to Kasech's campaign. Earl's complaint argues that Kasich's campaign should pay a minimum of $720,000 as a fine. And I hope they get every bit of that, because this is the problem, folks. This is the problem with our officials. They're just dishonest. This is no different than Hillary Clinton. John Kasich and Hillary Clinton are indistinguishable. They're indistinguishable from Barack Obama. And we'll talk more about these lies that are coming from every direction. And folks, you can't have a representative form of government when people just sit there and blatantly lie to you. Okay? And now John Kasich wants to be the president. The guy wants to be a presidential candidate. All right? And we clearly documented after the election how not only did they pay $300,000 to get Charlie Earl and the Libertarians off the ballot, but while they were doing that, they used billions of your and my tax dollars to pay the Democratic Party to put up a stiff like Ed Fitzgerald, who was definitely going to lose, who had no support, no money behind him. And I've detailed that for you in the past. And if you want to know more about that, send me an email at TomZ at TeaPartyTalkWithTomZ.com, and I'll send you the documentation. John Kasich is a thug. The Ohio Republican Party is a money laundering operation. Okay? Matt Borges, pleaded guilty to a felony before for illegal campaign activity. What is this, Mr. Borges? Don't tell me you didn't, instigate this Republican Party. This wasn't a dirty trick, a plan to do what? To deny you, my listeners, the opportunity to vote, to deny you a fair election. They basically made sure you had no one to vote for but John Kasich, because John Kasich couldn't win in a fair election, right? And even when they did all of that, people didn't vote for John Kasich. 1 million less Ohioans voted in the election last year, the 2014 election, for John Kasich than voted in the previous election. 1 million people stayed home. It's just... I tell you this because I want you to understand who you're dealing with when they come out and they tell you that he's such a conservative and they represent you and your conservative Republican values. These people are frauds. We talk about it all the time. You come here to Tea Party Talk with TomZ for the truth, and I'm trying to give you the truth. I really could care less about John Kasich or Matt Borges. I wish they never came into my life. But as Winston Churchill taught us, you have to fight evil wherever you find it, or it will destroy you. And John Kasich is destroying your family. We documented last week about how your income has dropped 27% and how you're not getting ahead while they're making themselves rich and they're bribing people. So what are we doing about it? Well, there's an interesting thing going on, an interesting project that John McAvoy up in the Toledo area and his group, which is called the Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition, they started a new project called Ohio Conservatives United. And this is a pretty cool idea, okay? Because, folks, and those of you who are from the Tea Party, and especially you leaders who are listening to the show either, live while I'm streaming it or on Saturday when you're listening on the radio or on iHeartRadio, we all know that the strategy of the establishment is to split our vote. That's why they are paying Mike Huckabee to come out and run to try to take Christian votes away from Rick Santorum and Ted Cruz. That's why they're going to have Lindsey Graham come out and attack Rand Paul mercilessly. That's what Lindsey Graham's job is. He's not there to run for president. He's there to make sure that Rand Paul gets no traction. This is how the establishment makes sure, just like John Kasich made sure you had no one to vote for, their goal is to split our vote. So we know that. So we have to come behind one candidate. But it's hard because we all like a lot of candidates. So what the folks in Toledo have done is they've put together this Ohio Conservatives United survey. And basically, we're going to have individual groups all over the state, conservative groups, liberty groups, Tea Party groups, 912 groups, social conservative groups, life groups, all kinds of conservative groups are going to survey their members about who they would vote for president in the Republican primary. But then there's an interesting question on that survey. It then says, if your candidate is not in the top grouping, would you consider changing your vote in order to allow a real conservative to win the primary? And that's the key question. And I want you to answer that question. Because if we will move, if you can see where you stand, and then say, well, my guy's or gal's not going to make it, I'm going to change my vote, that the goal is that eventually we will get behind one or two people by the time the primary comes so they have a legitimate chance of winning. So I ask you to participate in that poll. If you are a group leader, you can get the survey from John McAvoy or write to me, and I'll send it to you. It's a very simple poll. And let me be clear. Doing this does not commit your group to anything, does not commit anyone that participates in the poll to anything. It's just your opinion. It doesn't violate any 501c3 laws or anything like that. So don't worry about that. It's a simple poll. Any group can do it. But what it's going to do is show who conservatives back, all right? Not have the establishment tell us who's in the lead. The conservatives are the people who do all the work in these campaigns. And you're going to see who we support, and that's going to help bring people behind these candidates and hopefully give us a real primary where our candidate has the same chance as the establishment candidate because we won't fall for their trick. Okay? So that's what I want you to do. So participate in the Ohio Conservatives United poll. Last thing I want to talk about before we take the break, or at least start talking on, is what's going on in Cleveland, Ohio, folks. It's incredibly disturbing what's going on. An official of the Cleveland of the Cleveland Mayor's Office, the Community Relations Board in Cleveland, their director, Blaine Griffith, actually sent out a tweet asking people if we should burn down the city of Cleveland if the wrong verdict is given in this police officer's case coming up. We're going to talk about that unbelievable, irresponsible action by a government official and what that means to our nation and to you after we get back from this break. You're listening to Tea Party Talk with Tom Z.
I'm Nick Skiriotis, president of SNK Asphalt and Concrete. As a Greek immigrant who came to America legally, my family and I have lived the American dream of freedom, hope, and opportunity. But that dream is fading due to an out-of-control federal government that is mixed up worse than a soup sandwich. We have a president who is putting more and more regulations on businesses, which is stomping economic and job growth. Government has taken more and more of our freedoms. They have taken over our health care and are trying to take over our schools with Common Core. We as Americans must wake up. Get involved before it is too late. We must fight to preserve the America our founders created, a nation that was founded on faith, family, and freedom. The fight is not easy, but anything worth fighting for never is. Our founders paid a heavy price for freedom. 5 of them did not live to see the independence they were fighting for. 9 of them were tortured. 12 of them lost everything they owned, and 3 of them lost their families. Now it is our turn to sacrifice and to fight to preserve our freedoms and the American dream. I am Nick Skiriotis, president of SNK Asphalt and Concrete, and I approve this message.
Fed up with politicians who care more about special interests than people on Main Street? So is Opportunity Ohio. We're working hard to solve Ohio's toughest challenges so Ohioans can create more jobs to grow our economy. See our plans and consider a tax-deductible contribution at opportunityohio.org. Invest $25 for a signed copy of Matt Mayer's book, The Founding Debate: Where Should the Power Over Our Lives Reside? Please visit opportunityohio.org.
All right, and we're back, and I'm glad you're with me this morning, and I hope you enjoyed the first portion of the show. We were talking at the end of that first segment about what's going on in Cleveland, Ohio. And folks, you just can't make this stuff up. This government official who is the director of the community relations, right? Community relations director, Blaine Griffith, for the city of Cleveland, was tweeting out asking citizens whether they think Cleveland should be burned down if we don't get the right verdict in this case where these police officers being charged with manslaughter in this shooting that happened in 2012, where two unarmed African Americans were killed by police after a very long car chase. It's a very difficult situation because the case has been going on forever and things are kind of building up. But here's the problem. The problem is, if you or I sent out a tweet encouraging people to, saying, should we burn down the city? I'm going to get a knock on the door by the FBI. So are you, okay? But this guy didn't even get fired. Mayor Jackson of Cleveland, the Cleveland mayor, said, we learned about the tweet and it was inappropriate. Yeah, you think? How about instigating violence, instigating riots? And the guy that tweeted didn't stop with the one tweet. He started egging people on, saying, come on, give me your opinion. I want to know if the city should burn down. Okay, and Jackson said at a news conference, okay, that we took action the next morning. He said, I did. I gave him a strong verbal reprimand. He gave him a strong verbal reprimand when the guy is a public official on the taxpayer payroll, the head of community relations, and his idea of community relations is to ask people to burn the city down. Where's the district attorney in Cleveland? Where is someone to charge this guy with inciting riots? Right? But they don't. And that's the problem. That's what happened in Baltimore. They didn't stop the riots. They encouraged the riots. The mayor of Baltimore encouraged the riots because she told the police to stand down. And since then, we've learned that proper police procedure is to get on the first protesters, stop it before it starts. And the mayor of Baltimore intentionally didn't do that. And Mayor Jackson's not doing that. Okay? So they're already planning for riots. They had the city schools of Cleveland, which, by the way, are so bad that the mayor had to take control of the city schools in Cleveland to tell people that the schools would be closed, or no, the schools would be open when the verdict comes out, but feel free to keep your kids at home. What do you think those kids are going to do if they keep them at home? They're going to be part of the riot. This is the problem, okay? This is the problem. Let me ask you a question. You think the FBI doesn't know the people who were the instigators of the violence at Ferguson and in New York City and then at Baltimore, and now they're coming to Cleveland? You think they don't know who they are? So why are they allowed to come and organize? A friend of mine was on the phone over the weekend saying he was at a fair in Cleveland on Sunday, and there was a white kid passing around flyers, and he wouldn't give him a flyer, but he gave it to some other people, and they put theirs down, and he read it. And on that flyer, they were instigating, we're going to meet 2 hours after the verdict. We're going to meet in downtown at a specific location to begin the protest. 2 hours after the verdict. That flyer didn't just happen because of outrage. That flyer was paid for. That young man handing it out was being paid. And our question is, who's paying them, and why aren't those people being brought to justice? Because, folks, this week in Cleveland, just yesterday, on Tuesday and Monday, there were protesters stopping traffic. Stopping traffic is not free speech. It's just keeping me from getting to my job, okay, is not your right. You have a right to protest. Stopping traffic isn't the right to protest. It isn't free speech. It's a crime. Those people should have been arrested. They weren't arrested. This isn't happening by accident. These public officials are part of the problem. They're the ones who set up the police to fail. They're the ones that need to be held accountable, and they're not being held accountable. Speaking of being held accountable, let's move on to our next story, which is just huge. And this is the Judicial Watch bombshell email that came out this week, where they got 100 pages of Department of Defense and Department of State documents. Folks, this is unbelievably powerful. And I'm going to read a couple of these things for you. Number one, a Defense Department document from the Defense Intelligence Agency dated September 12, 2012, the day after the Benghazi embassy attacks and the killing of our ambassador and 3 other brave Americans. The day after the attack, this Department of Defense document details the attack on the compound as having been carefully planned by a group called BOCAR to kill as many Americans as possible. The document was sent to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It's right on the email. It was sent to Hillary Clinton, then Defense Secretary Leanne Panetta, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Obama White House National Security Council. The heavily redacted Defense Department information report says the attack on the Benghazi facility was planned and executed by the brigades of the Captain Omar Abdul Romar. The group describes it subscribes to AQ ideologies. The attack was planned 10 or more days prior on approximately the 1st of September. The intention of the attack on the consulate was to kill as many Americans as possible to seek revenge for U.S. killings of this one guy in Pakistan. And is in a memorial. It was intended to be a memorial to the September 11, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center. Okay? The President of the United States went on 60 Minutes and denied this. Right? Hillary Clinton told the families of those killed in Benghazi that it was a movie and that they would hold the person for the internet video responsible. She knew the day after that it was a pre-planned terrorist attack, and yet Susan Rice went on TV on all the Sunday shows and lied to your face. They're bold-faced liars. That's not my opinion. It's now a fact. Judicial Watch just put the documents out. I can read them. You can read them. I emailed them to everyone that gets my emails this morning. The next thing they talk about was that, like many of us suspected, the DOD document also contains the first official documentation that the Obama administration knew that weapons were being shipped from the port of Benghazi to rebel troops in Syria. An October 2012 report confirms weapons from the former Libya military stockpiles were shipped from the port of Benghazi, Libya, to the port of Banais and port of Bourgogne, Islam, Syria. The weapons shipped included late August 2012 were sniper rifles, RPGs, 125 millimeter and 155 millimeter howitzer missiles. Okay? So we knew that there were illegal weapons being shipped from Libya, okay, to Syria. Okay? And now one final bombshell that was released by this document. Another DIA report written in August 2012, the same period the U.S. was monitoring weapons flows for Libya and to Syria, said that the opposition in Syria was driven by Al-Qaeda and other extremist Muslim groups. The Salafists and Muslim Brotherhood, the AQI, are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. The growing sectarian direction of the war was predicted to have dire consequences for Iraq, which include the grave danger of the rise of ISIS. Okay? So this is the bottom line. The documents from the Department of Defense literally told President Obama 15 months before he went on national TV and said that ISIS was surprised. They were surprised by ISIS. He called them the JV team. 15 months before that happened, he was given a report that said that ISIS would declare, it says, that the deterioration of the situation has dire consequences on the Iraqi situation are as follows. This creates the ideal atmosphere for al-Qaeda to return to its old pockets in Mosul and Ramadi. Ramadi just fell this week, and will provide a renewed monument under this presumption of unifying the jihad among Sunni, Iraqi, and Syria. The rest of the Sunnis in the Arab world against with what it considers one enemy, the dissenters. ISIS could also declare an Islamic state through its union with other terrorist organizations in Iraq and Syria, which will create grave danger in regards to unifying Iraq and protecting its territory. Folks, the President of the United States knew years in advance of what's going on here that ISIS was on the rise and has done nothing to stop it. Nothing to stop it. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. So that's why you listen to this radio show. Those are the facts. And so, basically, what did we end up with this week? We ended up with this idiotic conversation where the media was asking Republican candidates, knowing what you know now, what would you do? Would you have gone to war in Iraq? Okay? Well, we talked a couple weeks ago when I compared what happened to Kent State with what happened in Baltimore. And I talked about, the difference between history and the past. Right? The history of Iraq is there was no weapons of mass destruction. We went under false pretenses, and it was all a big lie. Either a lie, because they say they fudged the weapons of mass destruction stuff, even though Saddam Hussein killed thousands, tens of thousands of Kurds and Iranians with chemical weapons. They claim that doesn't mean anything. So it's either a lie or it was a mistake. But you know what? The past shows us, not the history that was written that they're selling you. Go back and read some of the stories from back then. The fact of the matter is, whether there was weapons of mass destruction or not, we still would have ended up going in Iraq because Saddam Hussein was funding terrorism. All the Al-Qaeda guys were there. He was the one making it possible. And it was, whether it was weapons of mass destruction or something else, we would have ended up going to Iraq. Okay? We would have ended up going to Iraq, and that's the fact. But here's the real question, okay? Here's the real question that Democrats don't want the media to ask, particularly Hillary Clinton, okay? And that question is, if you know then what you know now about Iraq, would you have agreed, with President Barack Obama withdrawing troops from Iraq and allowing ISIS to flourish? Because, folks, we had Iraq won. Iraq was under control. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, the left threw away what we had earned. Iran would not be the threat they are to Israel. They would not be on the verge of getting nuclear weapons. ISIS wouldn't exist if we were still in Iraq. So don't tell me about the mistake that George Bush made, okay, when you made an even bigger mistake. Because Bush made the mistake, if you want to call it that, and then got it right with the surge. And then you gave it away. And now you're going to do the same thing in Afghanistan. And that's on you. And that's on Hillary Clinton, right? Because Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State when the president pulled out of Iraq. But will we ever get to ask her that question? Does anyone on the left really care? No, they don't care because they're not about the truth. They're not about, telling you the truth. Hillary Clinton's lying again. They found a second email account for Hillary Clinton, right? Another one. So now she had a private server, but now there's another email account she didn't talk about. This is our problem, folks. The people who are leading us are liars and thieves and self-promoters. They're not working for you and I. And that's why you need to join the Tea Party movement. If you go to OhioLibertyCoalition.org, you can see a list, a map of all the liberty groups in Ohio that you can join. We need to get ready for the 2016 primary and elect people who are going to represent us. We need to fight the Matt Borgeses and John Kasich who rigged the political system so your vote doesn't count. We can do that if we join together. We run for office and we support those who run for office. That's how you fight back, and that's how we're going to fight back. I thank you for joining me once again on Tea Party Talk with TomZ, and we'll see you again next week.
This is former State Representative Matt Lynch inviting you to join me for common sense conservative conversation each Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. on How I See It. You can listen live or listen to the podcast anytime, 24/7 at mattlynch.com. Each week I am joined by my daughter Karen Quay on a rhino hunt as we separate the phonies from the real conservatives who are willing to stand up for faith, family, and freedom. We challenge the politically correct politicians who say one thing to get your vote, then do another once they are in office. 2015 is a new year, but too many of our politicians didn't get the message that business as usual in Washington is no longer acceptable. If our representatives in Congress are too scared or too weak to speak up, then we must raise our voices and demand they fight back against the liberal loonies. Never forget that we, the voters, are in charge, and we are the masters of our government, and we cannot let politicians ever forget it. So listen in every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. or anytime at mattlynch.com. I'm Matt Lynch, and that's how I see it.